Step back in time and rediscover 25 classic American family traditions that have almost completely disappeared. From Sunday dinners to Saturday morning cartoons, these cherished moments once defined family life, but are now fading into nostalgia. Sunday dinner wasn't just a meal, it was a cherished ritual that brought families together. After a long week, Sunday evening was reserved for home-cooked meals, shared stories, and quality time. It wasn't uncommon for multiple generations to gather around the same table, with grandparents, aunts, uncles, and cousins joining in. The menu often featured traditional comfort foods, pot roasts, mashed potatoes, casseroles, and freshly baked pies. Beyond the food, these dinners were a time to bond, laugh, and catch up on life without the distractions of phones or television. It was a moment when parents imparted wisdom, kids shared their week's adventures, and family traditions were passed down. But as modern life became busier, with longer work hours, packed schedules, and the convenience of fast food, this tradition slowly faded. Many families now eat separately, at different times, often in front of screens. The warmth of Sunday family dinners may be fading, but for those who experienced it, the memories remain priceless. Before the era of instant messaging, staying in touch required more effort and a personal touch. Families and friends wrote letters by hand, carefully choosing their words, folding the paper neatly, and sealing it in an envelope. Long-distance relatives eagerly awaited news-filled letters, sometimes accompanied by photos or small keepsakes. Kids were taught to write thank you notes for gifts, a practice that instilled gratitude and etiquette. Waiting for a letter to arrive added an element of excitement, and finding a handwritten envelope in the mailbox was a special moment. Love letters, birthday wishes, and heartfelt apologies carried more weight when written by hand. But with the rise of emails, texts, and social media, letter writing has become nearly obsolete. A quick message, emoji, or voice note has replaced what was once a thoughtful and time-consuming tradition. Though rare today, receiving a handwritten letter still feels special, perhaps because it reminds us of a time when communication was more personal and deliberate. There was a time when every family had a bookshelf lined with thick, colorful photo albums, each one filled with carefully arranged pictures, handwritten notes, and mementos like ticket stubs and postcards. Scrapbooking wasn't just about preserving memories. It was a creative and sentimental activity. Parents would sit down with their kids, flipping through old photos, reminiscing about vacations, birthdays, and family milestones. The process itself was meaningful. Developing film was an exciting event, and sorting through printed photos was a shared experience. You'd choose the best shots, glue them into albums, and jot down dates and little anecdotes in the margins. But today, with smartphones and cloud storage, most family photos never make it to print. They sit in endless digital galleries, rarely revisited. While the convenience is undeniable, something feels lost. The nostalgia of flipping through a worn album, laughing at old outfits, and reliving precious moments. And speaking of family bonding, remember when sitting down to watch TV was an event in itself? There was a time when watching TV wasn't a solo activity, it was a family event. Before streaming, DVRs, and on-demand content, families gathered in the living room at a specific time to catch their favorite shows together. Whether it was The Wonderful World of Disney on Sunday nights, the latest episode of The Brady Bunch, or a primetime game show, TV time was an experience shared with loved ones. Parents, kids, and even grandparents would pile onto the couch, snacks in hand, ready to enjoy the same show. Commercial breaks sparked conversations, and cliffhangers left everyone eagerly waiting for next week's episode. Back then, there were fewer channels, so the shows you watched often became common topics of discussion at school or work the next day. But with today's endless content and personal screens, everyone watches their own thing, often in separate rooms. The shared excitement of tuning in together is fading fast. And before TV became the household's main entertainment, families used to gather around something else entirely: the radio. For generations of kids, Saturday morning meant one thing: cartoons. There was no better feeling than rolling out of bed early, pouring a giant bowl of sugary cereal, and plopping down in front of the TV for hours of animated fun. Unlike today, when cartoons are available on demand, back then, you had to wait all week for this special lineup. Networks like ABC, CBS, and NBC filled Saturday mornings with beloved classics like Looney Tunes, Scooby-Doo, The Smurfs, and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. The programming was designed just for kids, free from school and responsibilities, making it feel like a weekend reward. Commercials were just as iconic, featuring toy ads and catchy jingles that every kid knew by heart. But by the late 2000s, networks stopped prioritizing Saturday morning cartoons, replaced by news and educational programming. Streaming and 24/7 cartoon channels made them unnecessary, and just like that, the ritual disappeared. But there was another weekend tradition that brought families together, gathering for a home-cooked Sunday dinner. There was a time when opening your lunchbox at school was like opening a little piece of home. Parents packed lunches with care, peanut butter and jelly sandwiches wrapped in wax paper, a thermos of soup, an apple, and maybe a homemade cookie. Some lucky kids even found handwritten notes tucked inside, with simple messages like, "Have a great day," or "Good luck on your test." Lunchboxes themselves were iconic, often featuring popular TV shows, superheroes, or cartoon characters. And trading snacks with friends was a daily ritual. Someone always had a coveted pack of fruit snacks or a homemade brownie up for grabs. But over time, this tradition faded. With busier schedules, many families rely on prepackaged snacks or school-provided lunches instead. Today, meals are often mass-produced, and handwritten notes have been replaced by quick texts. And just like those homemade lunches, another childhood staple is fading away: the tradition of passing down clothes from one sibling to the next. Before fast fashion and endless shopping options, hand-me-downs were a normal part of growing up. When an older sibling outgrew their clothes, they didn't go to waste. They were passed down to younger brothers and sisters. Whether it was a slightly worn denim jacket, a favorite cartoon-themed sweater, or even a pair of sturdy winter boots, these items carried a history. For many kids, wearing a sibling's old clothes was a rite of passage. Sometimes, you couldn't wait to get your hands on a beloved hoodie or that cool jacket your older brother wore. Other times, it wasn't as exciting, like inheriting an itchy sweater you couldn't escape. But no matter what, it was a practical way for families to save money, and it gave clothing a second life. Today, with the rise of cheap, trendy clothing and frequent sales, hand-me-downs have become less common. Clothes are often discarded rather than reused. And speaking of childhood essentials, remember the excitement of waiting for the ice cream truck? Sending holiday cards used to be an annual tradition that required time, effort, and a personal touch. Families would dress up in coordinated outfits, gather in front of the fireplace or a festive outdoor scene, and pose for the perfect holiday photo. Whether it was a professional portrait or a candid snapshot from a recent family trip, these photos were a way to stay connected with loved ones near and far. Once the picture was chosen, families would order printed cards, handwrite messages inside, and address each envelope carefully. The process wasn't just about sending a card, it was about sharing a piece of family life with friends and relatives. Many people even kept these cards year after year, displaying them on refrigerators or in scrapbooks. But with the rise of social media and digital communication, the holiday card tradition has faded. Now, a quick text, email, or Facebook post has replaced the thoughtfulness of a physical card. While some families still keep the tradition alive, the personal touch just isn't what it used to be. There was something magical about piling into the family car and heading to the drive-in on a warm summer night. Parents packed blankets, kids brought their favorite snacks, and everyone found the perfect parking spot in front of the giant outdoor screen. The smell of popcorn filled the air, fireflies flickered in the distance, and the excitement built as the sun dipped below the horizon. Drive-ins weren't just about watching movies. They were an experience. Kids in pajamas curled up in the back seat, couples sat on tailgates under the stars, and families shared laughter and gasps at the latest blockbuster. It was a social event, with intermissions featuring cartoon snack ads and playground breaks for restless children. But as multiplex theaters expanded and home entertainment improved, drive-ins started disappearing. Today, only a handful remain, a nostalgic reminder of simpler times. And just like those drive-in nights, another car-related tradition has nearly vanished. The adventure of family road trips before GPS and smartphones changed the way we travel. Before smartphones and GPS apps, family road trips were an adventure in patience, navigation, and teamwork. Planning a trip meant unfolding a massive paper map, tracing routes with a highlighter, and marking key stops along the way. Parents relied on printed directions, and when those weren't enough, stopping at a gas station to ask for help was a common part of the journey. Kids in the back seat weren't glued to tablets. Instead, they played road trip games like I Spy and the license plate game. Snack stops at roadside diners, quirky attractions like the world's largest ball of yarn, and spontaneous detours made every trip unpredictable. Road atlases were a must-have, and misreading them often led to hilarious or frustrating detours. Today, GPS apps provide turn-by-turn instructions, reroute around traffic, and even suggest restaurants. While it's undeniably convenient, something has been lost. The excitement of getting a little lost, discovering hidden gems, and truly experiencing the open road. Before television took over American living rooms, the radio was the heart of home entertainment. Families would gather around a large wooden radio console, listening intently to the voices and sounds that transported them to different worlds. Classic shows like The Lone Ranger, The Shadow, and Fibber McGee and Molly kept audiences captivated, proving that imagination was just as powerful as moving pictures. Unlike modern entertainment, where everyone watches their own screens, radio brought families together in a shared experience. Parents and children sat side by side, hanging on every word of a thrilling mystery, laughing at a comedy skit, or tapping their feet to live big band performances. News broadcasts delivered the latest headlines, and fireside chats from President Roosevelt provided comfort during uncertain times. As televisions became more affordable in the 1950s, family radio nights started to fade. Today, podcasts and streaming have revived the audio format, but the magic of gathering around a single radio, immersed in the same story, is a nearly lost tradition. The sound of an ice cream truck's jingle drifting through the neighborhood was once the highlight of a child's day. No matter what you were doing, playing outside, riding bikes, or lounging on the porch, the moment you heard that familiar tune, it was a race to find loose change and sprint to the curb before the truck disappeared. Each neighborhood had its own ice cream truck regulars, from the classic vanilla twist to colorful bomb pops and choco tacos. Kids eagerly lined up, counting their coins and debating their choices, while the driver handed out treats with a smile. But over time, ice cream trucks became a rare sight. Rising costs, stricter neighborhood regulations, and changing consumer habits have made them less common. Now, ice cream is just a grocery store purchase, missing the thrill of hearing that music and chasing down a sweet summer memory. While some trucks still roam, the golden age of the ice cream truck chase is fading fast. Before video games and smartphones, kids spent their days outside, inventing adventures, riding bikes, and playing endless rounds of tag, hide-and-seek, or kickball. The golden rule? Be home when the streetlights flickered on. That soft glow signaled the end of the day, sending kids running home, often sweaty, scraped up, and full of stories. There was no need for constant check-ins. Parents knew their kids were safe, somewhere in the neighborhood, laughing and exploring. Summer nights felt endless, with games stretching into dusk and the distant sound of crickets filling the air. And for many kids, the best part of the weekend came next: Sunday visits to Grandma's house. After a long day of outdoor fun, there was nothing better than piling into the family car, knowing that a warm meal, fresh-baked cookies, and Grandma's endless hugs were waiting. It was a tradition that brought families together, week after week, making Sundays something truly special. Sundays used to have a special kind of warmth, the kind that could only be found at Grandma's house. It was an unspoken tradition. After church or a lazy morning, families packed into the car and drove to Grandma's, where the smell of home-cooked meals filled the air. Her kitchen was always busy, pies cooling on the windowsill, a pot of something delicious simmering on the stove. Grandparents greeted everyone with big hugs, and the afternoon was spent catching up, laughing, and sharing stories from the week. Kids played in the yard or flipped through old photo albums, while the adults relaxed at the dining table, sipping coffee and talking about life. It wasn't just about the food, it was about connection. No matter how hectic life got, Sundays were reserved for family. But as people moved farther apart and schedules grew busier, this weekly ritual faded. Now, visits are rare, and Sunday dinners are often just another night of the week. Before the internet made everything instant, planning a trip to the movies required a bit of effort. Instead of pulling out a phone, You grabbed the local newspaper and flipped to the entertainment section, scanning the tiny print for showtimes at your nearest theater. The listings were often cluttered with movie titles, run times, and theater names, sometimes even with a short synopsis or a star rating. Families would circle their chosen movie, plan the perfect time, and head out, often arriving early to secure good seats. If the movie was sold out, you had to make a last-minute decision to pick something else or come back another day. There was something exciting about this process. It built anticipation, making movie night feel like an event. But with online ticketing, trailers on demand, and digital schedules, the newspaper listings have become obsolete. Now, a few taps on a screen can do what once required careful planning and a bit of luck. Before the convenience of microwave popcorn, making popcorn on the stove was a small event in itself. Families would pour kernels into a pan with oil, cover it with a lid, and listen for the first pop. As the popping intensified, someone would shake the pan back and forth to keep the kernels from burning. The sound, the smell, and the anticipation made it a fun and interactive process. Once the popping slowed, it was time to lift the lid and reveal the fluffy golden popcorn inside. A little salt, melted butter, and maybe even some homemade caramel made it the perfect movie night snack. Sitting on the couch with a big bowl of freshly popped corn felt more rewarding than simply pressing a button on the microwave. Today, stove-popped popcorn is rare, replaced by quick, pre-packaged alternatives. But for those who remember, the experience was just as enjoyable as the snack itself. We're already halfway through this video. Stay tuned, because you won't want to miss the rest of these lost traditions. There was a time when dinner was more than just a meal. It was a daily tradition that brought families together. The dinner table was a place for conversation, laughter, and storytelling. Parents asked about their kids' school day. Siblings joked and teased, and sometimes, important life lessons were shared between bites. No one was scrolling through their phone or half-watching TV in the background. The focus was on the people at the table, and mealtime was a chance to truly connect. Some families even had unspoken rules: no elbows on the table, no talking with your mouth full, and always waiting until everyone was served before digging in. But today, distractions are everywhere. Phones buzz with notifications, TVs play in the background, and fast-paced schedules make sit-down dinners rare. Many families now eat separately or while multitasking, losing the meaningful connection that mealtime once provided. We're already halfway through this video. Stay tuned, because you won't want to miss the rest of these lost traditions. Before school-issued covers and digital textbooks, kids had a simple but creative back-to-school ritual, covering their books with brown paper bags. Schools required students to protect their textbooks, and since reusable covers weren't always available, grocery bags became the go-to solution. Parents would carefully fold and tape the paper around each book, making sure it fit just right. But the real fun began when kids got to decorate them. Doodles, stickers, colorful markers, and even secret messages covered the blank brown canvas. Some kids proudly wrote their names in bubble letters, while others turned their books into makeshift sketch pads during class. Not only did this tradition protect books, but it also made each one feel uniquely personal. Over time, mass-produced book covers, digital learning, and disposable workbooks made brown paper covers nearly obsolete. Today, most students will never experience the fun of customizing their own textbooks. There was a time when game nights were a regular tradition in many households. Families would gather around the kitchen table, pull out a board game, and spend hours rolling dice, moving pieces, and debating the rules. Games like Monopoly, Clue, Scrabble, and The Game of Life weren't just about winning. They were about bonding, laughter, and sometimes a little friendly competition. Each game had its own quirks. Someone always ended up in jail for half the Monopoly game. Clue sparked dramatic accusations of Colonel Mustard in the library with the candlestick, and Scrabble led to arguments over whether a word was real. Snacks were passed around, jokes were made, and no one checked their phone because they didn't have one. Today, while board games still exist, they've taken a backseat to digital entertainment. Many families now spend evenings watching TV or playing on their own devices, making traditional game nights a rare sight. There was a time when summer weekends meant one thing: backyard barbecues with neighbors. Families would fire up the grill, set out picnic tables, and invite the whole block over for a day of food, laughter, and connection. Kids ran around playing tag or catching fireflies, while adults flipped burgers, passed around potato salad, and sipped lemonade or iced tea. Barbecues weren't just about the food, they were about community. Neighbors bonded over stories, shared recipes, and built friendships that lasted years. There were no formal invitations, just the smell of a grill and the sound of music drifting through the air, signaling that it was time to gather. But today, people are more isolated. With busier schedules, indoor entertainment, and fewer close-knit communities, backyard barbecues have become rare. Many people barely know their neighbors, and the casual, come-as-you-are cookout has been replaced by planned events or eating alone. Before streaming services and instant playlists, making a mixtape or burned CD was an art form. Whether it was for a best friend, a road trip, or a crush, every song choice was carefully considered. You had to sit by the radio, ready to hit record at the perfect moment, or spend hours burning CDs, organizing tracks just right. Each mixtape told a story. Maybe it was a collection of summer anthems, a breakup playlist, or a secret message hidden in song lyrics. Friends traded tapes filled with favorite bands, and couples exchanged mixes as a way to express feelings words couldn't. The effort put into these homemade compilations made them feel personal and meaningful. Today, streaming services have made music instantly accessible, and while sharing a playlist is easy, it doesn't have the same sentimental value. The thrill of carefully crafting the perfect mix, decorating the tape cover, and handing it to someone special is a lost tradition. Before the era of streaming, Friday nights meant one thing: going to Blockbuster. Families and friends would pile into the car, wander the aisles lined with VHS tapes and DVDs, and debate which movie to take home. The store was filled with excitement, from spotting a new release to discovering an old favorite tucked away on a lower shelf. The ritual didn't end at choosing a movie. There was the suspense of hoping your top pick wasn't already rented out, the joy of grabbing a pack of candy or microwave popcorn, and the shared experience of watching something together. Returning the movie on time to avoid late fees was part of the deal, and rewinding the VHS before returning it was an unspoken rule. Now, with everything available at the click of a button, the fun of browsing shelves, making a careful selection, and heading home with a physical copy in hand is gone. The experience of renting movies has faded into nostalgia. Before online recipes and food blogs, every family had a treasured recipe book, a handwritten collection of dishes passed down through generations. Some were carefully organized in notebooks, while others were a mix of faded index cards, stained with years of cooking. These books held more than instructions. They carried family history, traditions, and memories of loved ones who had perfected each dish. Grandmothers taught their children and grandchildren how to knead dough, season sauces, or bake the perfect pie, often with little more than a pinch of this and a handful of that. Some recipes weren't even written down, just learned by watching and doing. Today, digital recipes have replaced these personal collections. With a quick Google search, anyone can find endless variations of the same dish. But something is missing: the warmth of a handwritten note, the faded ink of a well-loved recipe, and the connection to those who came before us, cooking the same meals for their families. There was a time when collecting green stamps or trading coupons was a part of everyday life. Families saved up books of S&H green stamps, carefully placing each one into the pages, knowing that once they had enough, they could redeem them for household goods, toys, or even furniture. The anticipation of flipping through the catalog to choose a reward made it exciting. Coupon trading was another household tradition. Sunday newspapers were filled with clipped deals, and families would swap offers they didn't need with friends or neighbors. Grocery shopping became a game of strategy. Who could save the most money by using the right combination of coupons? Before strict airport security, saying goodbye at the airport was a much more personal experience. Families and friends could walk their loved ones all the way to the departure gate, sitting with them until the final boarding call. Tearful goodbyes weren't rushed at the curb. People watched planes take off, waving until they disappeared into the sky. For kids, the excitement of watching planes up close and exploring the airport with family made air travel special. Long-distance couples shared last hugs at the gate, and returning loved ones were greeted with signs, balloons, and warm embraces the moment they stepped off the plane. After September 11th, security regulations tightened, and only ticketed passengers were allowed beyond the checkpoints. Now, goodbyes are often hurried, happening outside the terminal or at baggage drop. The emotional moments once shared in airport waiting areas have been replaced by quick waves from behind security lines, making departures feel less intimate and more distant. These traditions may be fading, but the memories live on. Which ones do you remember? Share your favorite in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more nostalgic trips through the past. Trips through the past. Trips through the past.